Now adjust the volume control so that the sound can be heard in all parts of the room.
This is the Protect Your Assets podcast.
You get the idea?
Bring me a dream.
It's on the internet.
Make him the cutest that I've ever seen.
Go on.
Give him two lips like
It's like no cheese I've ever tasted.
and tell him that his lonesome
Here's the
nights
Sandman.
are over, Sandman.
If you have a cat or dog, chances are you've experienced the veterinarian, and you know what that can mean, a big cost. So should you get pet insurance? What do you think? Well, this morning we're going to talk about that. Is pet insurance a good investment? Don't get blindsided by an injury out of nowhere for your pet. Good morning. Welcome to Protect Your Assets. I am David Hollander. I am the Sandman. People call me that around here because I help you sleep well at night by answering your most troubled tax, legal, or financial questions. That's because I've been running a tax, legal, financial firm for over 30 years. We have lots of experience. It's a beautiful day outside, and today is no exception. If you have a pet, you know what I'm talking about. Out of nowhere, they eat something. It's usually right. That's something. They eat something. Something happens. Next thing you know, you're, oh my gosh, are they going to be okay? And then the vet bills come, and of course, you're just beside yourself, hoping they're going to pull through, and you don't care. I mean, you care, but the shock kind of wears off once you see your pet, right? So we've all been there. We know what it's like. And then the question comes up, should you get insurance? And is it too late? These are all good questions. You can always ask me a question like one of our listeners did by shooting me an email to questions@pyaradio.com. Again, questions@pyaradio.com. So if you're looking for an alternative way to pay for your pet's medical expenses, well, pet insurance could be the answer. Many people think that once their pet has inclined to doing things and is now sick and you've been in there a few times, you can't get insurance. I mean, that's just the way it usually works, right? Wrong. You are able to get insurance even after the fact. Which one should you buy? There's so many choices. So there's a lot of questions when it comes to pet insurance, and hopefully this morning we'll answer some of them. It's impossible to answer all of them, but we'll do our best. And you only find it here this weekend on Protect Your Assets. So let's get started. Relatively quiet week in the market. We had the Dow off 0.1%, still up year to date 8.7%. S&P off slightly 0.3%, year to date up 13%. It's incredible. NASDAQ off 0.7%, up year to date 16.4%. International index still the hero, down 1% this week, but year to date up over 20%. And the 10-year Treasury holding steady at 4.18%. Oil had the big week this week, up 4.7%, closed at $65.36 a barrel. So over the last week, started getting questions about the economy. And overall, the data that we saw this past week looks like the U.S. economy is holding in there better than expected. We saw the second quarter GDP growth. Remember, growth is what we're looking for. If growth starts to stall or roll over, that's a problem. And it was just revised last week higher by 3.8%. And the forecast were at 3.3. So we were better than expected on growth. That's very good. And the consumption rates, this is us going out and buying stuff. This drives about 70% of the economy. This came in above expectations, 2.5%. It's very healthy. Again, forecasted at 1.7. So you have growth looking pretty good overall for the market. And all the data, looking at it right now, paints a picture of a consumer that is healthy and is spending money. And so what do we think is going to happen in the third quarter? That's the big question. And I was just looking back at the April. Think back that way. April lows, S&P is right now up over 30% from the lows of April. We haven't seen a 2% or more pullback since then. And this is all being driven by momentum and some good news that's been coming out. And so this could drive markets higher, but it is September 27th. We are about to enter into October, which traditionally is the month I can't remember. I remember October of 2008. You remember those? Jeez. So typically when you enter in these times, especially right now, we don't really have much coming in the next few weeks until mid-October in terms of news and data that we can look at. And we do have the dreaded U.S. government shutdown approaching us quickly. October 1st is the date that's supposed to happen. And if Congress doesn't pass the stopgap measure, which we saw years ago, remember, it just wasn't too long ago when everything just sort of stopped and all that news. So that could cause the pullback, a little bit of volatility. How much? Maybe 5 to 10%. I just don't expect a more severe correction right now, given the data that we're seeing and the underlying strength of this economy. So what should you be doing right now? What should you be thinking about at this moment in time? Well, first, you want to make sure that your investments are adequately diversified for your needs. So if you're entering retirement, you're in retirement, you're expecting a certain amount of money every month, now would be a great time to look and see what's creating that income. And if it's not consistent or steady, you might want to adjust that a little bit. You might want to look at other ways that you can create income that would carry you through any sort of volatility that could last longer than, say, a year. If it did, what would you do? So that's the first thing. It would be a good time to start taking some profits, moving them around, creating that income. And when you're talking about the exposure on your fixed income, you want to look at investment grade. Look at investment grade bonds. Also look at some fixed annuities right now, have some very good rates. While rates are high, these assets can hold up better in market pullbacks than equities do. The other thing you want to do, second, would be, we would say if you have any outsized positions, say in cash right now. A lot of people are sitting on cash. It was too late. They didn't get in. Market moved, so they're still stuck there, sitting there. I think now could be a good time to think about investments in maybe a dream list of stocks that if they pulled back, you would buy into them. Certainly the high quality bonds I'm talking about with yields, and as I'm talking about fixed indexed annuities, those have some very good rates right now, with rates being high. You could consider adding some of these to your overall exposure, and that would just lower your overall volatility and risk. And by doing that, if something came, you'd be in a better position. Over the long term, cash returns typically underperform these other asset classes, and they may not keep up with inflation. And that just means that now is the time to be thinking about alternatives that could protect you while the markets are still pretty good overall. So take a look at it. Don't ignore it. I know it feels good. Everything looks pretty good. But these are the times to be clipping the coupons, picking the ripe fruit. You know what I mean. Spend some time and do it. Are you looking for an alternative way to pay your pet's next big medical expense? Well, does insurance make sense or not? When I come back, we're going to start to dig into this subject because there's a lot to it. It's not that simple. I'll have some of the answers here. If your pet gets seriously sick or injured, what would you do? Think about that. It's all coming up next, right here on Protect Your Assets. We'll be right back.
Take the first step toward reaching your financial goals and get the information that can help you live a confident retirement. That first step is going to pyaevents.com and signing up for our next free event. That's pyaevents.com. Now back to Protect Your Assets with David Hollander, the Sandman.
Welcome back. This is Protect Your Assets with David Hollander, and people around here, they call me the Sandman. And that's because I help my listeners protect their hard-earned money by answering their most troubled legal, financial, tax questions each week. And that's because I've been running a firm for over 30 years. And this week we've got a great question about pet insurance. What would you do if your favorite friend became ill? Ate something and that was it? It gets scary, doesn't it? It's pretty scary, and you want to know what to do. Well, today we've got you covered. We're talking about pet insurance. Is it a good investment? Does it make sense? That's all right. Moving on now. We're talking about pet insurance, and does it make sense? Well, let's first of all talk about what is pet insurance, because it's different from your health insurance and sometimes you just make some assumptions. So first of all, pet insurance is a type of property and casualty. Think about that, because your pets are typically your property, that cover pets' medical expenses. And this is where it's different than ours. It's related to accidents and or illnesses. Break those two apart, because that's where you can get in trouble. So understand what those two things mean and what you're looking for. Many of the companies that we looked at offer cat and dog insurance, but if you have a special exotic pet, like maybe a bird, reptile, tiger, I saw where your mind went there. There is a significant difference between pet insurance coverage and your own health insurance, and that is if you're looking for pet care, you want to break down what you actually want to get and what you're going to pay for. It's very different than your health, so just realize that as we're looking at it. And if you have, again, an exotic pet, that's different as well, and only some companies will do that. Generally, there are no network restrictions with pet insurance, and coverage applies to any licensed vet or specialist nationwide, believe it or not. What types of insurance? So we just mentioned that. Accident and illness versus accident only. So accident illness policies will provide comprehensive coverage for your pet's health needs, like diagnoses, surgeries, hospitalization, treatment, medication. Accident only, this is where it's different. Those are usually less expensive and more affordable, but they typically only cover specific sudden unexpected injuries that occur to your pet. So don't confuse those two, and don't look at the price and say, oh, that's a better deal, I'm going to go with that. And then you don't get what you need, which might be caused from an illness. So really pay attention to that. And then also look for different riders, because if there's certain things you know your pet needs every year, like maybe you like to do checkups, you like dental care, you like vaccinations, even spayings coming up or neutering, parasite prevention, you live in an area where that's prevalent with ticks and so forth. Well, those can be covered, but again, you got to pay for that. And there are yearly limits for that. For example, one plan I looked at offered reimbursements for vaccinations, but it was capped at $75 a year. So check with your vet, see what are some of the things that you could be experiencing, particularly if you have a new puppy or kitten, and you're trying to figure out what those costs would look like. So how does it work? Once you get the insurance, how do you actually collect on it? This was another one that I learned from experience. Pet insurance is like other insurance policies. You pay your premium. It could be all at once. You could pay monthly. And then that carrier agrees to reimburse. Notice I say that. Reimburse your pet's medical expenses if they get injured or ill. Each year, so again, think about that too. That's where it's different than your policy. Each year, you pay for that medical care out of your pocket until you reach the annual deductible. Now, all that means something. In other words, your pet gets ill, eats something. You go to the hospital, they remove it, or they can't remove it. They have to go in and buy surgery. And the bills start getting into the tens of thousands, right? That's where it starts getting really expensive. And you're going to have to pay your deductible first, and then they'll pay you back when you submit the bill. So you may have to pay the whole thing up front. Get ready for that, and then they will reimburse you back after you've met your deductible. Once the deductible is paid for, typically the insurance companies start reimbursing you up to 90% of the bill. I didn't see any 100%ers out there. It was all around 90% or less. Your policy is up for renewal at the end of the year. Now, what happens if you had like a surgery that just came up and it knocked out your entire insurance? In other words, you bought $10,000 worth of insurance and you had a $15,000 bill. Well, it's going to cover 90% of that $15,000, which would be the full $10,000. That could all be in one shot. And then you're done. That's it. You're done. You're maxed out. No more insurance. And that's when you would go and look for another policy, not waiting the full year because there's nothing left. And realize that at the end of each anniversary, that policy is ending, and then you can go renew it or change companies and do something else, which could make sense. You might want to change your reimbursement percent, maybe your deductible, maybe how much it pays out. You have a bad experience, like I just said, and now you're like, wow, this could be a $15,000 or $20,000 bill. Maybe I'm going to get more coverage. And you know your pet's behavior, so that's where you want to think about that. Upon renewal, the deductible and the annual payout limit reset, and the premium you pay will be recalculated. But unlike your car or homeowner's insurance, premiums won't increase if you file a claim. That's different, so think about that. That said, I've seen huge premium increases each year, and these typically do match your pet's age, inflation, and the cost of veterinary care in your zip code. So if you happen to spend time in two different zip codes, maybe you do a search with the company you zero in on and the zip codes you want to live in, and then maybe you use one of your other addresses. That could make sense. If you want to find out more about pet insurance, we do have some information to share with you. We'd be happy to walk you through it and talk to you about your resources and how you use those. But you need to find out more about it. So go ahead and give us a call. We'll take down some information and be happy to share with you what we've done. 866-PROTECT. Give us a call. We're here right now. We're here to help you figure out insurance and how would you use it in case of an illness or an emergency for your favorite furry friend. 866-PROTECT is the number. Now, when we come back, they say pet insurance doesn't cover teeth cleaning. Is that true? Find out the answer when we come back. You're listening to Protect Your Assets, and today we are protecting our favorite furry friends.
Take the first step toward reaching your financial goals and get the information that can help you live a confident retirement. That first step is going to pyaevents.com and signing up for our next free event. That's pyaevents.com. Now back to Protect Your Assets with David Hollander, the Sandman.
Welcome back. Welcome back to Protect Your Assets. I am David Hollander. They call me the Sandman around here. That's because I help you protect more of what you work so hard for by talking to you about any sort of tax, legal, or financial question. And this week, we got a great question about pet insurance. Does that make sense from a financial perspective? All right, we're talking about your favorite friend, your dog or cat, and maybe you just got a puppy or a kitten. You're not sure what their personality is really like. You're exploring, you're learning, you're having a good time, and then all of a sudden something happens. They get sick, they eat something, and now, oh no, what's going to happen? Big bills, right? Because the veterinarian bills are scary, and you want to know what you should do. Or maybe you have a pet who's prone to doing things. You've maxed out your insurance policy, and you think that's it, you're done. What can you do? Well, today we're talking about that. Does pet insurance work? What is it? How do you use it? What are some things you should know about? And so with that, now it's time for one of our fan favorite parts of the show. It is our They Say segment, where we debunk common myths, half-truths, and sometimes just bad advice that they say.
Who are they? What do they know that I don't? And what are they saying this week? Here's David Hollander, the Sandman's answer.
All right, so here's one they say. They say that pet insurance doesn't pay for your teeth cleaning of your pet. Is that true? Well, I hate to tell you, but the answer is no, it doesn't. So I wasn't able to find any sort of riders or anything that covered that. So that's true. If you have health insurance for your pet, most likely the teeth cleaning is not covered. And so that got me into, well, what if you want unlimited coverage for your pet? What are some of the policies out there that had very good, if not the best, when I looked at it, unlimited coverage for pets? Well, there's a company called Spot. And again, this is just my own research. Please go do your own due diligence. It's just my experience. Spot Pet Insurance, when I looked at it, had some pretty good benefits. They had annual payout limits of unlimited. You heard me right, unlimited. So if you were typically getting $7,000 to $10,000 of coverage for that surgery, that scary surgery that comes out of nowhere, and had one of those, they could be in the well over $10,000. They have unlimited payouts with Spot pet insurance. Reimbursement rates, they had 70, 80, or 90%. Again, 90% was the top that I saw. And the deductibles, again, you choose 100, 250, 500, 750, or 1,000. All that helps with your premium. Discounts, if you are multi-pets, you'll get 10% off. And the sample premiums for cats and dogs was well within range of what was out there. What were the pros of this? Well, unlimited annual coverage. No upper age limit. They had a 24/7 telehealth helpline, and you could get 270 days or around 8 months to file a claim if you're one of those slow people and get around to it. You know, you got to get the bill from the vet, then you got to send it over to them, then you got to wait for it to be approved, and then they send you a check. So it does take some time. Give yourself time there. What are some of the problems I saw there? Well, higher than average premium for younger pets, and charges, transaction fees for monthly, quarterly, or semi-annual payments. So maybe you go ahead and just make the one-time payment. But as far as offering 100% coverage options, they allow you to maximize your pet's coverage, meaning you're not responsible for any co-payments. In addition, the company offered a very low $100 deductible option, which further reduced your out-of-pocket payment if something came up. So that said, choosing one or both of a low co-payment and a low deductible could lead to a higher premium, and Spot's prices, which were higher than normal for young pets. We'll come to that in a minute. You have the upper age limit there where there's no upper age limit. So if you have an older pet, that might be a good option for you. So check it out. Now, how does it work? So let's say you zeroed on a company and you like it. Pet insurance works much like other insurance policies where you pay your premium and then the carrier agrees to reimburse you. Remember that. Reimburse your pet's medical expense if they get injured or ill. And so you have to pay out of pocket. So be prepared for that. So again, if you're going along, your pet eats something funny, and I've seen that a few times where they eat something funny and then they get funny. And you get scared. And this happens quite a bit. Pets pick up and eat drugs all the time. This happens. And I've had several pets who have eaten horse tranquilizers and stashes that were on the side of the road. You name it, it's happened. And then what happened to my dog? What's wrong? You don't know. And they're gone. They're out there. So then you have to take them in and they go through that. And hopefully it's mild and then they can get out of there for not much. But sometimes something gets stuck in there and they have to go in and do surgery to remove it. And those get scary and very expensive. And so, of course, you want your pet to come out of that. And so, maybe the first time that happens, you just do what you can and you put on your credit cards and you pay it off over time. But it's painful in several ways, of course. Pet insurance could really help with that. In fact, if you had one illness like that, injury, accident, whatever you want to call it, and the insurance paid off, well, that could really be a good investment for you, particularly when you look at the longevity of your pet. So think about it that way. It just takes one. And again, once you've met that deductible, whatever deductible you chose as we just went over, then they're going to pay back 90% of the bill. And typically they'll pay it all in one shot. So if you had a big expense, you submitted the bill to the insurance company, they paid you that 90% back. You maxed out the policy because maybe you bought a $10,000 limit. That's it. If you bought the unlimited, well, they're going to pay 90% of whatever that ends up being for that entire policy year. And once you renew, that deductible and annual payout limit reset. So automatically just reset back to what they were, and your premiums will be recalculated, but not based on your filing records. So in other words, if you filed a claim, they're not going to hit you with that with pet insurance, which is different than with homeowners where they may cancel you. Or they may, raise your premiums substantially because you filed a claim. Not with pet insurance. It doesn't work that way. The premiums typically increase because of your pet's age, inflation, and most importantly, what is the cost of veterinary care in your zip code? And if you try that, you'll see as you request premium quotes and you put in one zip code compared to another, you'll see that premium jumps around a little bit. So you may want to play that game a little bit, especially if you've got a couple zip codes you can do that with. Now, what does pet insurance cover? Again, it depends on what you've chosen. And again, some of the things I've seen that it includes poisoning, bite wounds. This is the one that I experienced, ingesting a foreign object. What about torn ligaments? You have a very active pet. Yep, it could cover torn ligaments. This is a big one. A lot of pets suffer cancer, diabetes, allergies to food, arthritis, orthopedic conditions. A lot of dogs have hip issues. So all these things can be covered by pet insurance. And so if you have a breed that is susceptible to certain types of illnesses, you just know it's part of the makeup and you're not really sure. Maybe you bought your pet from a breeder that seems reputable, seems good, has experience, but you're just not sure what you're looking for. Pet insurance really could be a good option for you. But how do you know what to buy? And what do you do with your resources? How do you use those? What makes sense? These are very good questions. We can help you figure that out. If you want some help with that, if you're thinking about this issue, you want to work with someone who's experienced with this, call us 866-PROTECT. That's our number, 866-PROTECT. You can call us right now, 866-776-8328. We are here to help you through retirement, create that income you're looking for. Not be afraid of the volatility that could hit us here in October. October is coming up. Market's done fairly well. Could be due for a pullback as we see the October 1st roll around and Congress maybe stall. Government shutdowns. Could be. Nothing huge, but could happen. So, again, great time to look at it. 866-PROTECT. Get a second opinion. Let us help you with some of these issues that matter. 866-PROTECT. Coming up next, what's the best pet insurance for your puppy or kitten? Great question. We'll cover it when we come back. You're listening to The Sandman on the Protect Your Assets Radio Network.
If you missed any of Protect Your Assets with David Hollander, all you have to do is go to pyaradio.com where you can download or listen to our latest shows for free. Just go to pyaradio.com on your computer or mobile device when it's most convenient for you. That's pyaradio.com. Now, back to Protect Your Assets with David Hollander, the Sandman.
Welcome back. Welcome back to Protect Your Assets. I am David Hollander, the Sandman. And people around here, they call me the Sandman because I help you protect what you work so hard for each and every week. And this morning we're talking about your pets. And is pet insurance a good idea financially? Because after all, it's not inexpensive. But all it takes is one injury to your pet, and you know what I'm talking about. It can get very expensive. And if they're inclined to need the other type of hip replacement or something like that as they get older, it just starts to multiply. And all it takes is a couple of those to really make you wonder, is there any alternative out there for you? And is it too late if your pet is inclined to some things that start to come up? We've got your answers this morning as we talk about all of this. Now, if you missed any of today's show, particularly the market segment, go back and check out our podcast. It's called Protect Your Assets. You can download it now. If you use Spotify, iTunes, any of those, just type in Protect Your Assets and you will find our show. All right, what's the best pet insurance for a puppy or a kitten? Great question. And I found through, again, this is my research, I like Pumpkin. And I have experience with Pumpkin Pet Insurance. They had annual payout limits of 10, 20, or even unlimited. And I'm talking about 1,000, 10 or 20,000 payouts. Reimbursement rates, again, up to 90%. The deductibles as low as 100, up to 1,000. And they had some discounts which were available if you had multiple pets. Now, I chose Pumpkin as the best insurance for puppies and kittens right now because it offered a lot of comparatively other options for little cost when you're comparing them to other ones. So it provides extensive insurance and preventative care options, particularly for your young pet, that are important when you're looking at vaccinations and other things that you just need to do to prevent things from happening to your puppy or kitten. They also didn't have an upper age limit if you're looking for insurance for your older pet, but I'll come back to that. They weren't the best deal I found for the pre-existing condition or older pet. I'll come to that in a minute. They had a very short waiting period. This I liked because when I had to use them, and again, I had a big claim, had a lot of things happening with my dog, and I, was like, oh boy, this is not going to work. But it did. There was a short waiting period. It was no more than 14 days, and they do pay for knee and hip dysplasia, which, as you know, can be very, very expensive. And this was just a good experience overall deal with them. Now, the negatives I found: no customizable reimbursement level. They didn't have just the accident-only option, which, again, if you're looking just for affordability, accident-only is a good option instead of nothing for some people. And their preventative plans didn't reimburse for spay or neutering surgeries. And as I mentioned in they say dental cleanings, nope, not part of this plan. But they did have an affordable plan with options to add preventative care. And these could be packages you could pay for your cat, your young cat, or your puppy. And this wasn't included in the standard coverage. So if you're looking for things like a package for, say, annual wellness, puppy vaccinations, kitten vaccinations, and I'm not going to say that on the air. Anyway, this was a great option for your young pet. Now, this is the one. You had something happen to your pet. You think that's it. You're done, right? It's not going to work. Well, that's not true. The best insurance I found for pre-existing conditions or your older pet, it's not too late for you. Check out the AKC pet insurance. They paid for pre-existing conditions. And when I was looking at a lot of these, they didn't cover pre-existing conditions, but AKC did. Even if your pet is officially diagnosed months into your policy's coverage, they can cover you. If the insurer determined that your pet showed signs of illness before enrollment or during the waiting period, typically they'll deny you. But the exception to the rule depends on whether the carrier makes a distinction between curable and incurable pre-existing conditions. You could be in luck. So the United States Fire Insurance Company, they're the underwriters behind ASPCA, Spot, and Pumpkin Pet Insurance, excluded chronic pre-existing conditions, but will cover curable ones such as ear infections, or you have a pet with skin conditions. Sometimes it's related to food. But anyway, the only requirement is that the pet remains symptom and treatment-free for 6 months, and then you claim. Then you go on. So anyway, this was an interesting policy. They had respiratory coverage, orthopedic illnesses, ear infections, just things that cancer, things that come up that maybe you want to take a look at. So they had annual payout limits from $2,500 up to unlimited. Reimbursement rates, again, you could dial those down to make the premium more affordable, 70%. And, of course, deductibles as high as $1,000. All that could help. They had a multi-pet discount of 5%. And I liked AKC because they had the accident-only plan option, and they had direct payments available under certain conditions to your vet. In other words, you're not paying for it. They pay directly, and I like that. So take a look at some of these options you have with pet insurance. If you need help, don't go it alone. We have experience with this. We've been doing it, and we can help build a financial plan where we can look at how you're using your money and what you're getting out of it. We're more than happy to help you with it. Retirement is a major transition made up of many financial as well as life decisions that you have to make. And if you have a pet, or you're thinking about getting a pet or multiple pets as you enter retirement, and you're going to spend your time doing that because you enjoy it, well, pet insurance could be a really good idea. And that's why it's important that you work with a financial firm and an advisor or advisors that are experienced in this area, and they can help you create a retirement plan where you can look at all these expenses and your income and make sure you're getting the best out of both of those worlds. And don't forget about taxes. Tax season is just around the corner, and now is a perfect time to be planning for that. If you need help with any of this, pick up the phone, give us a call. We're here right now. My team's sitting there waiting for you. Want to talk to you here on this beautiful Saturday. It takes just a few seconds. 866-PROTECT. Lines are open right now. Give us a call. 866-776-8328. Again, get a second opinion. 866-PROTECT. I'd like to give a big thanks to the Protect Your Asset team for putting together a great show today as we were talking about our favorite friends, my executive producer and network manager, Kevin Renfer, and of course, all my fabulous producers upstairs up there, Lucas, Zach this morning, Raph. Thanks, guys, because without my team, I'm just another pretty voice on the radio. You've been listening to the Protect Your Asset show. I am David Hollander, the Sandman. Go out and make the rest of your life the best of your life.
Investment advisory services are offered through Liberty Wealth Management, a registered investment advisor. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon as a basis for investment decisions. The strategies mentioned are not suitable for everyone. The information expressed does not consider your specific situation or objectives and may not be appropriate for all investors. Past performance is not indicative of future results. To better understand the risk associated with investing and how it reacts to different market conditions, listeners should always consult with their qualified investment professionals, financial advisors, legal or tax specialists, and conduct their due diligence before making any financial decisions or taking any action. The legal information provided on the air is not intended to substitute for callers hiring their lawyers to advise them about personal legal matters. Investments involve risk and, unless otherwise stated, are not guaranteed. Liberty Group LLC paid for the following program, and the host's views and opinions do not represent those of the station or its ownership. California Life Agent number 048569. Persons engaging the services of one affiliate of Liberty Group LLC companies should be aware that each company is operated separately. You're listening to the Protect Your Assets Radio Network.